So once again, happy Friday. Let's get started like we normally do. You've all done this before, so let's just do a short period of bell meditation. I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dhamma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. It's Friday. It's the temple. It's the deer park. It's the Buddha Center. It's been a weird day today. So, today we're going to talk about wisdom. This is the last of the 6 refinements. So we've talked about generosity, we've talked about morals and ethics, we've talked about acceptance or tolerance, we've talked about energy or vitality, and we talked about meditation. So today we're going to talk about wisdom. Wisdom is kind of one of those nebulous things that's kind of hard even to recognize in ourselves. Well, actually, I think we recognize it in others sometimes more than we can recognize it in ourselves. which is true for so many things. Excuse me. Well, traditionally, when they think about wisdom or they try to describe wisdom, they will say, well, it's the ability to discern the truths of metaphysical theories and moral rules that were thought to govern the existence of human beings. Well, today it is not always so clear whether those theories that they're talking about, those metaphysical theories, have validity, or even that such moral rules for the existence of human beings even existed or exist. Wisdom and wise are not words that we hear very much in contemporary conversations anymore, unless we're specifically referring to maybe a religious or even a philosophical figure. But even then, the words wisdom and wise, they get used pretty sparingly. And it isn't that wisdom is undervalued. We value wisdom. Maybe we just don't always recognize it or realize it. It's more that we are rarely certain how it fits into the circumstances that we have to deal with today. How does wisdom fit in? And it certainly seems that wise actions taken by others seem to be few and far between. Right here, I have to make my first comment about what's going on in the world today. This coronavirus pandemic, I think we're seeing wisdom being showed by many more people than we realize were wise. Because in the face of all this, in the face of economic uncertainty and fear of disease and all that, the people that are choosing to do the best, what is best not only for themselves, but for everybody else, that's wisdom. That is a really easy engagement with wisdom that we can see right now. So if that's what you're doing, then you're doing something wise. As hard as it may be, wisdom isn't always easy. So skillfully imagining a role for wisdom as the spontaneous ability to act with integrity, compassion, and insight in the midst of the unique and sometimes difficult realities that we all face gives this ideal a more contemporary value. Again, look around. We can see it all around us right now. It changes the view of wisdom from this sort of indefinable state of mind, an almost transcendental concept to some, to a readily visible state of thought and action. I think I'm going to choose to stay in my home as much as I can to keep myself healthy and to keep others healthy. That's wise. So to act skillfully, to act with wisdom requires us to apply the 5 refinements that we've already talked about situationally, like acting with generosity of spirit, right? We want to act as generous as we can, and people have been extremely generous to myself and Mary, and we certainly appreciate it. So acting with generosity of spirit when it is needed and when you're able, that's a wise decision. Moral and ethical intent. When we act with that, that's wise. Because again, we're not only helping ourselves, we're helping others. Tolerance and patience. Whoa, these are 2 things we really need right now, right? Number 1, we have to tolerate that we may not be able to make money at our job. We have to tolerate or accept that we have to stay home. And then we have to accept our loved ones that were suddenly around 24/7. We have to accept that they might have quirks or little weirdnesses that we have to deal with. That's wisdom. And we go after this with some sort of vitality and energy, really hard. Right? When you're cooped up in your house and you don't really have a lot of opportunities to go out and do things, you find yourself getting a little sluggish, a little laid back, maybe too much, and you start to lose that idea of energy. So, and then with meditative, a meditative being, if you will, acting with calm and balance, Again, this is something we have to be doing right now. We have to try to stay calm, and we want to balance our lives as much as we can in the midst of what we're having to deal with. This is wisdom in action. When we get a real view of what's going on, of the situation we find ourselves in, and we find real corrective and encompassing ways to deal with it in a wholesome way, that's wisdom. Now, engage Dharma, we encourage practitioners to engage in lifelong learning. That is the beginning of a life of thinking and acting wisely. So again, in the midst of what we're doing right now, this is a great opportunity to do some learning. Jump on the computer, look up some stuff, get some ebooks from the library if you can do that. Maybe you have Hoopla for your phone. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities to learn. Even, I don't know, maybe talk to the people you're stuck in the house with and learn something from them. Because wisdom is not only in the knowledge that we have, but it is in the willingness to pursue further learning so that we can have varied experiences and varied knowledge that we can refer to when we encounter these unique situations that we're going to deal with in life. So I often talk about information, knowledge, and wisdom. Information being all that stuff we have in our head that we could win Jeopardy with. Knowledge being that information turned into some sort of action in our moment-to-moment living, right? We engage it as part of how we are. That in itself is a wise thing to do, but then that builds into more wisdom as we experientially verify thoughts, theories, teachings, and we go out and we practice them and see how they work. And we continue to use the ones that work well, right? Those habitual reactivities that work well for us, that have wholesome consequences. When we continue to engage in those, that's wisdom. But knowing, this idea of knowledge, if we just freeze at knowledge, that can create stagnation. So we want to continue learning. We want to have the dynamic, ever-changing, ever-engaged personality, if you will. We want to be that kind of human being. And we recognize that the path to wisdom is one of knowledge and experience that we gain through practice, and that results in the transformation of how we are. So each one of us engage in wise actions. We may not realize that that's what they are, and this is something we can begin to look at. Training in generosity, morals, tolerance, energy, meditation, and wisdom, as I have said, has been called the 6 perfections for a long time. But a deeper look at Buddhist philosophy will guide us away from this ideal of perfection, or idea, if you will, of perfection, to more the ideal of refinement. Because knowledge of impermanence and dependent origination, applied to all aspects of reality, will lead us to the discernment that there is nothing called perfection. We can't reach a state of perfection. There's no summit of knowledge or practice that can be reached by the majority of human beings. Instead, most of us, we have to engage in this constant effort to refine our knowledge and our actions, and to practice the refinements of generosity, morals, tolerance, energy, meditation, and wisdom. We're not going to reach perfection, but we're going to continue to reach, let's call them higher levels of wisdom, or higher levels of generosity, or higher levels of acceptance. And to do these things, this is to both think and act wisely. So I'm going to pull the emptiness card again here. One way that we can fully realize the concept of emptiness is to fully realize wisdom. And the Mahayana tradition explains emptiness by teaching what are things empty of? Well, they're empty of their own being, meaning there's nothing permanent about them. There is not a being at the core. There's a being that's always in transformation. So they cannot arise from themselves, nor can they arise from nothing. So actions arise as consequences of other actions, and then actions create their own consequences. And on, right? It's like a web. So with this in mind, then Mahayana Buddhists took the ideal of emptiness as the most basic description of the universe overall. And if we think about atoms and the space between them, there's, from what I understand, there's more emptiness than there is solidity. Well, that's emptiness, right? That's both emptiness and form in the same being. Now, in the large sutra on perfect wisdom, it is written, quote, "The perfection of wisdom is empty of the perfection of wisdom," unquote. To me, that means thinking that I can perfect my wisdom, thinking that I can become that perfect, wise being, well, that's empty of actually wisdom. So this alludes to the ideal then that there is no perfection of wisdom, or anything else for that matter. Because in the moment wisdom is applied, it's gone. And then we replace it with the wisdom needed to respond to the next moment. Wisdom as an action is situational, and so it cannot be perfected. But it can be refined. And man, it can be really refined. It can be refined up to a point that maybe most people would experience it as perfection. Because, hey, they're much more wise than I am. In the practice of the six refinements, it's said that it's the addition of wisdom that elevates the refinements from ordinary actions of generosity, morals, tolerance, energy, and meditation to extraordinary actions. Ordinary actions are those that are still tinged with a little self-regard, and that might inhibit the ability to reach truly compassionate and encompassing results. So it's having that little bit of selfish still kind of bubbling around in your choices and your thoughts and your actions. Extraordinary actions are accomplished because the need is evident, and a solution is reached spontaneously due to experience and knowledge, or if you will, wisdom. Thing is, though, how do we become wise? What is the practice needed to achieve wisdom? Well, as I've said, we're doing wise things all the time. We just have to learn to be mindful of them when we do them, or be aware when we other people say or do something that has a little wisdom there that you can recognize. But wisdom arises from recognizing the role that ideals such as impermanence, causal conditioning, and skillful means have in each unique moment we encounter. Basically, it's practice. We develop wisdom through our practice. It arises from the recognition of the values of our practices of generosity, morality, tolerance, energy, and meditation, especially when we apply them skillfully and situationally. With each experience, we refine our actions and thoughts, and we refine our knowledge and skills. As a pragmatic consequence, then, we refine our wisdom. We realize that though each situation is different, our experiences with similar situations do give us the tools that enable us to respond more positively and more effectively each time. There are no dogmatic rules, and there are no doctrines meant to apply equally to all situations. Instead, there are guidelines, such as the Four Ennobling Truths and the Six Refinements, the Eightfold Path, all that, that empower us with tools. But they also require us to be responsible for the choices we make. Being human beings, there is little doubt that mistakes will happen, no matter how wise we become. Wisdom, though, is taking responsibility, moving on, and doing better in the next situation. So it's wise to engage in practices that will make us wiser. Each time you engage in, let's use generosity only because it's probably the easiest one to use. When you see a need and you engage in generosity, and then you are aware of the consequences of that generosity. If the consequences were wholesome, positive, they were encompassing and corrective, and not only did it help others, but it went on maybe to get others to help others. And we say, oh, that worked out well. So the next time when faced with a similar situation, we try to engage in such a way that we can reach those same or similar wholesome circumstances, and we continue to do that every chance we get. Each time we do it, we're refining that wisdom more and more. So we have to engage a little wisdom in order to develop deeper wisdom. So I said that you guys do something wise every day. Well, today is an example. Coming here, whether it's to sit with me or to sit with anybody else here, to sit with a meditation session or whatever, if that is in pursuit of your goal on the noble path, then that's a wise decision. But if you come here just for socializing and to see friends and to just have fun and not learn anything, that's not a wise decision. But if you go to one of the clubs and dance with your friends and have fun and mingle and interconnect and learn about each other, that's a wise decision. So wisdom doesn't only come with all these deep philosophical things that we can do and think, or these deep helpful actions for others that we can do. Wisdom also arises in just our everyday choices. Like, is it wise to let dishes pile up in your sink for 3 days? No. So when you do the dishes, that's actually a practice of wisdom because it's wise not to have a stack of dirty dishes. For obvious reasons, right? So don't always look at wisdom as this deep, unattainable, maybe to you, way of thinking and acting. Maybe you think like the Dalai Lama is wise, and he is in a lot of things. Thich Nhat Hanh, wise in a lot of things. My root teacher, the Venerable Shishen Long, wise in most things. Myself, practice wisdom, but I'm constantly refining it too, as we all are. So, wisdom. We have it. Sometimes we don't use it when we should. We don't use it when we can. But we can begin to learn to and be mindful of when you do something that has a little wisdom behind it. Think about it, contemplate it, remember it, let it become experience, and let that experience help you in that next situation to think and act wisely.